They changed the locks on me, without warning, without reason, and without a trace of guilt. My name is Danica Monroe, and from wherever you're watching this, stay with me. Because I need to ask you something. Have you ever been locked out of a home you paid for by the people you thought were family? I stood outside the gate, confused at first. My code wasn't working. The keypad just blinked red, like I was some stranger trespassing. I tried again. Red. Then I checked my phone. One new message from Dad. We've changed all the locks on the front door, and also the gate code. We no longer trust you. Just like that. No call. No conversation. No confrontation. And the part that gutted me? There was no we in our family decisions until it was time to shut me out. I'd been paying the $4,800 monthly mortgage quietly for over a year. Every single payment. Auto-debited from my account. Because they said they were struggling, and I believed them. Because I thought being the eldest meant stepping up when no one else could. Because I believed family meant sacrifice, even if no one saw it. Even if they never said thank you. But now, apparently, I was untrustworthy. After paying over $57,000 toward a house I didn't even live in full-time anymore. After stepping aside so my younger sister, Bree, could have the bigger room for her business set up. Now, they locked me out. No explanation. No warning. Just cold digital rejection. I stood on the curb in my own childhood driveway, suitcase in hand, watching the gate blink back at me like it knew a secret I didn't. For a second, I thought it was a mistake. Some mix-up. Maybe Dad pressed the wrong button. But then I remembered what happened 3 days ago. Bree had thrown a dinner party. I wasn't invited, but I came home mid-event, and I overheard her laughing in the kitchen. Honestly, she's always been the backup plan. She's just too dumb to know it. She keeps paying the bills like we're her little rescue mission. And then Dad added, she's a good girl. Just doesn't need to know how things really work. Bree deserves this house, not her. I didn't say anything that night. I just quietly walked back out. But I didn't forget. So when the message came, the one saying we don't trust you, I didn't cry. I smiled. Because finally, I had proof. Proof that they never saw me as family. Only as a filler. A fund. A fool with a password. But they forgot one crucial thing. I never took my name off the mortgage. I had power. I had options. And I had receipts. So I walked away that night with one thought. Fine. Very smart. But I think you overlooked one thing. And what I did next. Let's just say it made their lawyer write the words. We have a problem. Call immediately. But I never did. Because by then, it was already too late. My earliest memory of family was not warmth, it was duty. Not love. Not closeness. But responsibility dressed up as affection. I was the oldest daughter. The good one. The one who understood when Christmas presents were uneven. The one who knew better when Bree threw tantrums and still got her way. Mom used to tell me, you're stronger than her. She needs more attention. You're mature. That sounded like a compliment, until I realized it was just a lifetime pass for everyone to neglect me. When Bree got into trouble, I was the one who covered. When Bree forgot homework, I stayed up all night helping. When Bree wanted a prom dress we couldn't afford, I gave up my savings. And when Bree flunked out of her 3rd college course, guess who was asked to move back home to help stabilize the household? Me. Not because I failed, but because I succeeded too quietly. I landed a remote tech job straight out of college. Good pay. Benefits. Freedom. So, naturally, I was the one they leaned on when bills piled up. Just until things calmed down, Dad said. You can work from anywhere, Mom added. Bree's trying to launch her business, they pleaded. And I agreed. Because that's what good daughters do. We give. We stretch. We self-erode until our absence is more shocking than our silence. I moved back in. Took the smallest room. Paid for the internet upgrade. Took over the electric bill. And eventually the mortgage. At first it was temporary. Then it became monthly. $4,800 every single month. My name on the paperwork. My income on the line.
Why?
Because my parents' credit was too low. Because Bree's income was inconsistent. Because I was responsible. And because part of me still believed that if I gave enough, they'd finally see me. But the truth?
They saw me.
They just never valued me. I remember once asking Mom, what happens if I stop paying the mortgage? She didn't flinch. Then we lose the house. Bree would have to give up everything. Not we'd lose it. Not you would be burdened. But Bree. Because somehow, my success always belonged to the family. But my struggle? That was mine alone. Still, I stayed. Until that night, I heard them laughing in the kitchen, calling me a backup plan, a fool. And suddenly, the mosaic of my life shattered into its real pieces. I saw every moment for what it was, not love, but leverage. And when Dad sent that message, "We no longer trust you," it was poetic. Because I had trusted them with everything. With my finances. With my stability. With my silence. But they never trusted me with a room. Or respect. Or honesty. They had made it clear. Bree deserved the house. I was just the wallet holding it up. So, I made a decision. Not out of rage, but clarity. Because when you finally realize you're not family, you stop paying to stay in someone else's story. And mine was just beginning. I didn't cry. Not after the message. Not after the gate wouldn't open. Not even after I realized they changed the front door lock too, as if I were a threat, not a daughter. I felt something colder than anger.
Clarity.
For the first time, I saw every past kindness for what it was, a leash. A trap wrapped in gratitude. I remembered last Thanksgiving. They didn't ask me if I'd be home. They informed me. Mom sent a list of groceries to pick up. Dad reminded me which chairs needed fixing. Bree walked in late and called me her sponsor with a smirk. And I laughed it off. Because that's what I was trained to do. Absorb their selfishness and translate it as love. But something shifted after the lockout. I started replaying the past, not through the lens of duty, but deception. And I started to notice the paper trail. See, I'm not just the eldest daughter. I'm also the one who reads the fine print. When I co-signed the mortgage, I made sure my name was there. Not because I didn't trust them, but because I wanted security. Turns out it was salvation. Because while they laughed at me in the kitchen, while they mocked my sacrifices behind my back, the house still bore my name. That meant I had power. Real power. So I got quiet. And I got strategic. I stopped the autopay. Waited 2 days. Dad called, furious. I let it ring. Then came an email from the loan servicer. Your mortgage payment for this month has not been received. That's when I knew they hadn't noticed yet. They were still riding on my silence, assuming I'd keep paying no matter how they treated me. That's the thing about manipulators. They mistake endurance for weakness. But when the switch flips, they're always unprepared. I started collecting everything. Every message. Every voicemail. Every "we don't trust you" line they threw my way. I documented years of payments. All the bank transfers. Screenshots.
Statements.
And then I went one step further. I reached out to the loan officer. Quietly. Professionally. I asked about my options, about withdrawing as a financial guarantor, about halting payments, about alerting the credit bureau if needed. He was shocked. You've been paying this solo for over a year? Yes, I said. And I just got locked out of the house I've been funding. Silence. Then, you may want to contact legal counsel. But I didn't need to. Because I knew what I was going to do next. Not a lawsuit. Not public drama. Something simpler. More devastating. I was going to let consequences do what I never could. Speak louder than their excuses. I canceled all future payments. Set up notifications in case they tried to reactivate anything. And I waited. 2 days later. Email from their lawyer. We have a problem. Please call immediately. I didn't. Because this wasn't just revenge. This was recognition. That I had always been the scaffolding holding up a family who swore I was invisible.
Now?
Let's see what happens when the scaffolding walks away. I didn't rage. I didn't post. I didn't even respond to the lawyer. Because when someone locks you out of a house you've been paying for, you don't knock on the door again. You walk away and take the roof with you. I had the power. They just hadn't figured it out yet. They thought the mortgage was some invisible faucet that just kept flowing. They didn't realize that faucet had a name, mine.
And now?
It was off. I watched as emails rolled in. Missed calls. Urgent subject lines. Texts from unknown numbers trying to sound neutral. Even Bree sent a message. Hey, not sure what's going on with the payments. Mom and Dad are kind of freaking out.
Can we talk?
The audacity. No apology. No acknowledgement of locking me out. Just panic. I ignored it. Instead, I cleaned up everything. I opened a new bank account, rerouted all my payroll deposits, closed any joint utilities, pulled my name from the household insurance. It was strange how liberating it felt to untangle yourself from a trap disguised as family. I moved into a short-term rental across town. It wasn't glamorous, tiny kitchen, secondhand furniture, but it was mine. The first night there, I made ramen on the stove and sat on the floor, barefoot, with the window open. The air felt honest. The silence didn't hurt. I finally slept. And the next morning, I started rebuilding. But not just my life, my records. I printed every receipt from the past year.
Filed it.
Made copies. Then I wrote a letter. Not out of emotion. Out of precision. To whom it may concern. Effective immediately, I am no longer financially responsible for the property located at address. As of date, all payments were terminated. Please contact the other cohabitants listed on the property title for future correspondence. Sincerely, Danica Monroe. It was clean, professional, non-negotiable. I sent it to the mortgage company, to the lawyer, and just for fun, to my parents' shared email address. No subject line. No greeting. Just clarity. A day later, I got a text from Dad. So this is how you handle family now. I didn't reply. But if I did, it would have been simple.
No.
This is how I handle people who lock me out of a house I pay for. They try to play chess with someone who built the board. They thought silence meant surrender. But really it was strategy. Let them talk. Let them spin. Me? I was working. That week, I met with a financial advisor. Started planning for a down payment on a place that wouldn't ghost me for Christmas. That wouldn't assign me a role I never auditioned for. One where I wasn't backup. Wasn't the wallet. Wasn't their plan B. I was done being quiet. But I didn't need noise. Just motion. Because they hadn't just lost a mortgage payment. They lost me. And they were about to learn what life looks like. When the one who held the foundation finally walks away. 3 weeks. That's how long it took for the cracks to show. The first domino? A notice of mortgage delinquency nailed to their front door. Then the letters came, red, bold, unforgiving. Second notice. Final warning. Default risk. Urgent response required. They started calling again. Mom tried first, voice trembling, false cheer in her tone. Sweetheart, I think there's been a mix-up with the payments. We just need a little clarification. I didn't answer. Then came Dad, the man who once told me I wasn't trustworthy. Be reasonable. You're acting emotional. This affects all of us. Emotional? No, Dad. I was exact. They didn't expect me to walk. Because they never imagined I could stand without them. But I'd been walking alone for years. They just never noticed. Next came the community whispers. Neighbors asking why the lawn was uncut. Why the mail piled up. Why Dad looked tired. Why Bree posted fewer selfies and more vague quotes about betrayal and loyalty. She went live one night. Eyes glossy, voice shaky. Sometimes, even your own blood turns on you. But God sees everything. And oh, the irony. Because God saw everything when she laughed about me being the family ATM. When she watched them change the locks and called it necessary. When she stood in my room wearing my old hoodie like it was her prize. Now, God saw the eviction notice tucked into the mailbox. The mortgage company reached out again, this time to all parties on the loan. I'd already informed them. I wasn't paying. I'd fulfilled my share, and I had documentation to prove it. When the loan officer called, his tone had shifted. You're not liable for future payments without agreement. They will need to assume responsibility. Translation: sink or swim. And they didn't know how to swim. Bree tried texting again, the longest message she'd sent in years. You always take things too far. You didn't even try to talk to us. Is money worth more than your family? I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I typed back one line. Is family worth more than respect? And hit send. That was the last time I responded. Because I wasn't interested in fixing what they broke with bare hands and smirks. They asked for independence when they changed the locks. I gave it to them with interest. Now they were drowning in bills, and I was out in the clear. I still got updates. People love to gossip when the perfect family starts falling apart. Turns out, Bree's online business wasn't real income, just dropshipping scams and filters. Mom's medical credit card had maxed out. Dad tried to apply for a refinance but couldn't. Too much debt. All the things I used to fix behind the scenes, they were now front-page chaos. And me? I was finally at peace. Not because they were suffering, but because I wasn't saving them anymore. You see, sometimes the best revenge isn't fire. It's withdrawal. It's choosing yourself so completely that the people who fed off your silence starve. They changed the locks. They forgot. I had the keys to everything. The house wasn't just falling apart from the inside. Now it was starting to show on the outside. A neighbor sent me a photo. The once pristine lawn now overgrown. The porch light flickering. And taped to the front door. Bold as day. Notice of foreclosure proceedings. I stared at the picture for a long moment. Not because I wanted to gloat, but because that door, the one they locked to protect the family, it was now wide open to judgment, shame, and cold air. And I hadn't even touched it. That's the thing about karma. It doesn't knock. It uses the front entrance you thought you owned. The fallout didn't stop there. Bree's carefully curated social media life, the expensive lattes, the office views, the soft life aesthetic, began to unravel fast. She started posting cryptic stories. Some people are only with you when you're winning. You think you can trust family, lol. God removes people for a reason. And suddenly, her followers started asking questions. What happened to your house? Didn't your sister help buy that place? Wait, who's paying your rent now? She disabled comments. Mom wasn't handling it any better. The community she once gossiped with at church, they'd gone quiet. Her best friend, Aunt Carla, apparently found out everything. Because Carla texted me. I'm sorry. I didn't know what they were doing to you. If you ever need anything, I'm here. I didn't reply, but I smiled. Because that was the thing with my family, they worked so hard to control the narrative. But when the truth started bleeding through the cracks, even their masks got tired. They tried to host a family-only barbecue to save face. A few neighbors showed up, but one of them told my cousin later. It was awkward. Bree was on her phone the whole time and your mom seemed off. Your dad barely spoke. Because what do you say when the daughter you ghosted turned out to be the one holding your whole life together? What do you tell guests when they ask, "How's Danica?" and your throat catches? The irony was unbearable. They spent years making me feel like I didn't belong. Now, they were in the exact space they built for me. Isolation. And the lawyer? Oh, he reached out again. I believe there's been a misunderstanding. Your parents are willing to restructure the agreement if you're open to conversation. I responded this time. Just one sentence. Please forward this to your clients. I don't co-sign for people who don't recognize me at the front door. Silence. They were scrambling, scratching at every old contact, trying to find a patchwork fix for a structural failure. But this wasn't about a missing payment anymore. This was about the collapse of entitlement. They lost their funding, their fixer, their silent supporter. And with her absence, the whole house began to rot, not from weather or weeds, but from the hollow space left behind. See, when you build a house on someone's back, don't be surprised when it crumbles the moment they stand up. And I had.
Tall.
Unapologetic.
Free.
I didn't tell anyone where I moved. Not friends. Not old coworkers. Not even the nosy aunties who suddenly remembered I existed once the foreclosure notice went up. Because this time, I wasn't starting over. I was starting right. The apartment was small. Humble. Just enough sunlight to kiss the walls every morning. No framed degrees. No gratitude plaques from my family for covering their messes. Just one quote I wrote on a sticky note and taped above my desk. You don't need a room to be part of a family, just peace to be part of yourself. I breathed for the first time in years. No checking apps for bounce transfers. No text at 2 a.m. saying, "Can you cover this real quick?" No guilt-drenched requests disguised as love. Just silence. The healing kind. And slowly, I poured myself into something that had always waited on the back burner.
Me.
I registered my own LLC, a remote support firm for small businesses. Used the same skills I once used to stabilize my parents' sinking ship. Only now I built my own boat. Clients came in steadily, then rapidly. Within months, I hired a part-time assistant, something Bree once said I wasn't cut out for. Ironic, because now I was the one paying her type. I started therapy. The first session, I cried for 30 minutes without words. The second I said, I wasn't the backup plan. I was the blueprint. And my therapist smiled and said, "That's where we begin." I bought a used car in cash. Cooked dinners that didn't have to feed ungrateful mouths. Learned to sleep in the middle of the bed because no one was going to shove me aside anymore. One night, I got a text from Bree. "You really don't care about us, huh?" I didn't reply, because it was never about caring. It was about surviving. She didn't understand that I had cared too much for too long. That every dollar I gave was a note in a love song they never listened to. Now I had nothing left to prove. I was living, not loudly,
Not to spite them.
but quietly, to honor myself. I started volunteering at a local youth shelter on weekends. Met girls who looked at me with eyes full of silence, the kind I knew too well. I told them stories. Not of pain, but of possibility. Of what happens when you stop trying to earn space at a table that's always been too small. One girl, maybe 16, asked me, "So, what did you do when your family shut the door on you?" And I said, "I bought the land next door and built my own." She laughed like she'd never heard something so rebellious. But it wasn't rebellion. It was redirection. Because that's the truth no one tells you. Sometimes your family locks the door, so you'll finally build your own home, with better walls, stronger roots, and no gate codes to keep you out. It happened quietly, the final message. A plain white envelope slid under my new apartment door. No return address. Just my name, written in my mother's handwriting. Inside, a folded letter, brittle at the edges. And a photo of us. Years ago. Before the locks. Before the silence. Her words were careful. We made mistakes. We panicked. Your father and I were afraid of losing control. Bree didn't handle things well. Neither did we. The house is gone. The mortgage defaulted. We're renting a one-bedroom now. I wish things had been different. I miss my daughter. I sat with that for a long time. Not with rage. Not even with sadness. Just stillness. Because there it was. The final thread. The last tug on my old loyalty. The part of me that once would have packed a bag, driven over, and handed them forgiveness like it was something they'd earned. But not this time. I didn't reply. Because healing isn't always about reconnection. Sometimes it's about completion. And I was complete. That weekend, I moved into my new condo. My name and only my name on the deed. 2 bedrooms. Warm lighting. A balcony just big enough for a morning coffee and a dream. I decorated slowly. Framed art from local women creators. Lit candles that smelled like hope. Hung a mirror in the entryway with a gold frame. The first thing guests would see. My space. My light. My reflection. I hosted a dinner the following month. 5 friends, people who became family without bloodlines or obligations. One of them raised a glass and said, "To Danica, for proving you don't need a key to find your place in the world." We clinked glasses, and I looked around that table at the love, the laughter, the honesty, and realized I was never asking too much. I was just asking the wrong people. Because the truth is, I had always been a room of my own. I just kept offering myself to people who refused to furnish me with dignity. Now, I was full.
Of peace.
Of boundaries. Of belonging. Sometimes, the greatest revenge isn't taking back what they stole. It's showing up in the life they swore you'd never have, and living it well. It's waking up in a place where no one calls you a burden, where no one shrinks your presence to make room for their pride, where no one changes locks because they know you hold the deeds. It's realizing you were never too much. They were just never enough to keep you. As I stood on my balcony that night, wind brushing my hair, I whispered to the sky, "Not my house." But then I smiled and said out loud, This one's all mine."